They left separately, but together, Scott Parry and Melanie Buchanan are responsible for a horrendous crime. A crime which saw their victim bashed, covered in petrol and burnt with a horseshoe. The vicious attack in 2016, the result of a falling out between the victim and Parry over his relationship with Buchanan. First, Parry King hit the victim before both Parry and Buchanan kicked the victim in the head and ribs. Despite pleading with them to stop, the victim was then covered in petrol. For the next half an hour, he watched as Parry used a gas torch to heat a horseshoe, but not before he ran the torch over the victim's fingers and once over the bottom of his foot. Then Parry did the unthinkable. He placed the horseshoe on the victim's skin in the middle of his back, which was so hot the victim heard his skin sizzle. When questioned by police, Parry said the victim had asked him to be burned with the horseshoe, telling officers he only held it down for a few seconds and that the victim didn't even flinch. As well as being burned, the victim also suffered bruising and fractures to his vertebrae. Parry and Buchanan will be sentenced for the crime in March next year. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It's the public asset fire sale that's gone under the radar, according to the member for Newcastle. 155 properties sold off.
That's $187 million worth of your money, taxpayers' money, that's come from Newcastle and gone down to Sydney for large infrastructure projects.
A large government office building in Bull Street sold, another on Derby Street.
It is an ideological obsession of this government to sell things, and that goes above and beyond what is logical in terms of some of these assets actually produce an income for the state government. Once you've sold the goose that lays the golden egg, you cannot get those golden eggs.
Dozens of social housing properties have been offloaded too, from Light Street Bar Beach to heritage-listed terrace houses in Newcastle East, while this private home at Cooks Hill replaced a public housing block. In Stockton, 16 properties have been sold, mostly public housing. Tim Krakenthorpe says there's been no new social housing properties in the Newcastle electorate in return. The Coalition has defended its approach, saying it's proud to have invested $1 billion into Newcastle over the last few years and that it will continue to upgrade social housing. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. As far as offices go, this one's not bad. The Port of Newcastle sees 4,500 shipping movements every year. Now Janine Drummond oversees it all, recently appointed the Harbour Master. The 42-year-old manages marine safety within the port and is responsible for staff who work by land, sea and air. A woman at the top of her field in a typically male-dominated industry, but she hopes she can help change that.
I'm excited about the opportunity to see women in non-traditional roles because I think it will inspire another generation of boys and girls and their parents around what possibilities they have for their own future, whether it's in careers, hobbies or sports.
The mother of two is the first female in the role in 176 years. Including Ernest Deed in 1957, there's a long list of 26 male predecessors dating back to 1834 when the port became a working harbour. Janine first went to sea at the age of 18 and became a ship's master on oil tankers at 29.
I started as a deck cadet 20-something years ago and worked my way through to ship's master before coming ashore to be a tug master and later into port operations in Sydney and now in Newcastle.
There have, of course, been challenges over the years.
Maybe some of the challenges have been more for the men around me than me, but there has definitely been different challenges. Probably affects most people when you're at sea in a small community on a ship, when you start to work in smaller groups. But most challenges I've turned into a positive and have worked with a really great group of people throughout my career.
But now she oversees tugboats she once captained and the harbour pilots who safely navigate the vessels through the harbour entrance, all the while creating a legacy for more women in maritime. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It's rare to see Jessica Campbell without a smile. Bubbly, a social butterfly with an infectious zest for life, the mother of two never expected to go through what she has.
When I got the call and the doctor said, "Oh, you need to come in and talk to me," I kind of knew straight away.
2 years ago, at the age of 33, Jess found a lump in her breast. She also found one in her 20s, but it was benign. This discovery was much different.
Within a week, I had surgery, a partial mastectomy. And then within a month I'd started chemotherapy, which went for about 3 months, and then I had 6 weeks of radiation therapy.
Thankfully, her vigilance meant the cancer was detected early because it was aggressive.
It did feel different, so I don't know, in the back of my mind I kind of had that feeling of dread, which I still do have every day. Waking up, it's always in the back of my mind whether it's going to come back or whether it's going to pop up somewhere else.
Having lost her mum suddenly just a few months before her diagnosis, her close friendship group was a vital support.
The first thing I thought about was I have to tell my dad, which is very, very hard because he just lost mum a few months prior. And I just know she would have been here every day doing everything for me and just being amazing support that she always was. So it was very, very hard.
Hosting a pink ribbon breakfast is a way to say thanks and, importantly, raise awareness and money. Jess was fit and healthy and has no family history of breast cancer. While breast cancer is less common in women under 40, more than 800 young women will be diagnosed with breast cancer each year in Australia. That's more than 2 women under 40 every day. And when they are, it's typically a more aggressive form of breast cancer than older women, with a higher risk of the cancer spreading to other parts of the body.
Some people my age don't even check. So I just think that's so important. So just to have today is just about awareness and raising those really important funds.
We're happy to report Jess is doing well and, with the help of her friends, raised $1,500 for the Breast Cancer Foundation. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
It's a song set to become a mantra for the farming community. Rain Down on Me. John Stevens' very personal effort to raise awareness and money for drought relief.
I wrote a song back in January called Rain Down on Me, and when I was asked to do Hey Mate and to get involved, I went in my bag and went, oh yeah, I got this song, it's got the right title, but I just had to rewrite it a little bit and got my band and we just recorded it and I've donated it to the cause.
He performed and launched the video clip for the song during an impromptu free gig for fans at Lizottes today. The overwhelming generosity shown at Saturday's concert for farmers in Tamworth still foremost on his mind.
Unfortunately, it didn't rain. Well, hoping it would rain, but just the fact that everyone was there and put a spotlight on, the plight of the farmers.
Stevens is keen to keep the focus on the cause as farmers head into what's looking to be a difficult dry summer. Proceeds from every download of Rain Down on Me will continue that support.
Every cent goes to rural aid and the farmers, so, that's just another way of contributing, It's what we do as musicians, as artists. We show up when people need help and we play music and bring everybody together.
in the shadow of an Australian icon, the darlings of Australian sport, calling on all of us to get on side. The Matildas are off to France next year for the Women's World Cup, but they want to host the next one.
Now there's little girls out there that can look up to us as role models and have an opportunity to play in the biggest game in the world in Australia.
This is something that will be very special, not just for football, but for the country.
The campaign is designed to send a message to FIFA that Australia is behind women's football.
Wouldn't it be fantastic if in 2023 we are hosting the biggest, most prestigious event in women's sport right here in Australia?
Huge crowds at recent games in Penrith and Newcastle help send that message too.
You know, I'm 25 now, and hopefully I'm still playing if we do get it, because it would be a huge honour to be able to represent your country on home soil in such, you know, in the biggest sporting event in your sport.
Ticket sales progressing well for matches in those same locations against Chile next month.
Every home game we've had, it just keeps growing and growing, so it's only getting bigger.
Of course, we're going to be in a competitive situation, and there are going to be other countries that want to host this tournament, so we have to put our best foot forward.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
It's been 6 months since the A-League decider but with just 1 point from their opening 2 games, the Jets are firmly focused on this season.
I think you move on and aim to be in the finals and correct that in the finals. If any players feel that they need any motivation because of a previous match, then I feel as though they're not going to play their best football every week.
The VAR failed Newcastle during the grand final and has already caused plenty of confusion in the early rounds.
I don't think the system is a problem. I think it's the operators that are a problem, and it's really the education of the referees.
The technology is here to stay, but officials are on notice.
But we also will be talking to the referees this week about making sure that there is a high threshold for intervention because the flow of the game is important and getting that balance right is important.
Following the draw with Adelaide, Ernie Merrick isn't forecasting major changes to the starting 11, but admits he has options.
Mitch Austin and Kane Shepherd are pretty keen to get a run up front. We brought on Nick Cowburn and Ben Kantarowski, so we've got 4 or 5 players really pushing.
In more positive news, Joey Champness is back running, while Johnny Katrumbas continues his battle with thyroid cancer.
Johnny's recovering really well, as you can see, and Joey's bone in his foot is fully healed now. It's about getting really fit, but making sure that we don't push either of them too hard.
The coach is desperate to get them back by 2019.
Joey and Johnny don't have a choice. They must be back by the 1st of January, because between the 1st of January and the 1st of February we have 7 games.
Rural Fire Service members immediately gave them first aid. At this stage, we don't know what caused the fire. That's under investigation of the police with assisting rural fire investigators.
The container spill still causing problems months on. Today, hundreds of skin cream tubs littered the shore at Merewether.
Judging by the direction of the swell and the wind that we've had over the other days, we quickly deduced that more than likely it's come from one of the containers that spilled off at Port Stephens 6 months ago.
The mess was seemingly cleaned up by early morning. Then, one by one, more tubs were carried in by the waves throughout the day. Around 500 have washed ashore so far.
Cleanup crews are not taking this lightly. They're patrolling all of the coastline from down south past Burwood Beach up north to Newcastle Beach, making sure that any debris that washes ashore is taken care of.
81 shipping containers fell off the YM Efficiency, leaving an unknown amount of debris in the ocean. And maritime experts say more odd items could surface over the coming months as the containers start to break apart on the sea floor.
Basically, we're just seeing the small stuff first. Maybe we can see many other products later on, but it's more like a wait-and-see approach.
Samantha Long, NBN News.
Sydney may be Australia's most populated city, but when it comes to Newcastle
is ready to be a major second city.
That would mean stepping up, creating more jobs, more revenue, and ultimately adding more people.
You can't just take on more people for the sake of it. You have to plan for it and structure it.
That's the focus of the Second Cities Forum, which began today. Experts from across the country and the globe are working out how Newcastle can best take advantage of a period of rapid growth as capital cities struggle to cope. Sydney's population currently stands at around 4.5 million people, whereas Newcastle is home to just over 359,000. If it were to become a second city, its population would increase to close to 1 million people, slightly less than that of Adelaide. But there's plenty of work ahead. Putting infrastructure in place to support such growth, just one hurdle.
One of the big challenges is that as a region, we're not all singing out of the same hymn book. So we've got lots of different groups that have different priorities.
The two-day forum wraps up tomorrow.
And at the end of it, we'll have an ask of some priorities to go and knock on the door of all tiers of government to say, hey, we're worth investing in for the benefit of the region and for the nation.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
We went in there looking for an agreement with the land, and they've committed to look at some funding options themselves. So we'll go to state government now and maybe look at a joint venture between the two.
Inside an unassuming hall at Rutherford, a group of men who are changing lives, one shot at a time. The trio all competed in archery at the Invictus Games, and while they have medals to show for it, the competition was about so much more.
It was great for my mental health. It was great for me injecting myself into the community.
They're recovering from years of military service and scars that can be hard to see.
For me, I tried to suppress anything that was negative that would affect my ability to do my job until a point where it became too much.
For these competitors, the Games in Sydney were just as Prince Harry intended them.
Standing on the shooting line, chatting with people from all over different countries, you figure out pretty quickly that we're all the same.
It's certainly been a growing experience. I'm very proud to have been able to actually start or get to the start line. This time 2 years ago, that wouldn't have happened.
For their coach, archery is a discipline that helps people of all abilities to better themselves.
So it helps you change your focus off you and your problems and onto something else.
And it gave the men a platform to inspire others.
Not just for ex-serving military, but the wider public. If you can get out there, something's happened to you, pick yourself up, get going again.
I think people think of military people as being rather masculine or tough, I guess. So for us to be able to open up on camera all the time about it probably helps blokes think that, oh, hang on a minute, if these guys are happy to talk about it, maybe I should too.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News. Joy Burgess is a survivor. In 2012, the wife, mother and grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Within a week, she'd had a mastectomy. For the next 3 years, her recovery was travelling well, but mentally, she was suffering with her identity.
I didn't think it mattered that I'd lost a breast, but in hindsight, I feel that it really did change everything, and I wasn't happy. I just felt different.
Joy wore a prosthesis. It was uncomfortable and limiting. Her specialist recommended reconstructive surgery. That's when Joy met Dr. Gary Avery.
The reconstructive part of it, some might say is not necessary, but when we see the improvement in people's quality of life and their just sense of well-being.
Joy underwent the surgery and, well, the rest is history.
It just made me feel like I'm a woman again, whole again. Yeah, and it's given me all the confidence I need that I was missing, that I thought I still had.
But for many women like Joy, life after mastectomy isn't spoken about. There's been a steady and small increase in people wanting reconstruction.
The number of women that have some type of reconstruction following their cancer treatment has been low compared to some countries and some regions, and Newcastle has been one of them. Women that have questions that may not have kind of felt they had the forum to be able to address them have got some access to that now.
I'd only spoken to people who didn't want reconstruction, and I've thought since they don't know what they're missing out on.
For many, it's all worth the physical and emotional pain.
As the enhancer expands the skin, it's not terribly comfortable, but it's worth it. You've got the goal at the end that you're going to be a complete person again.
Georgia Marr, NBN News.
2 days until takeoff. The Jets are ready to fire.
They're all about wanting to do one better than last year, so really good.
Their first assignment, Melbourne victory. Newcastle had the bye in round 1. Melbourne played out a 0-0 draw with Adelaide.
Look, they could have came out better than what they did. They had a lot of chances. I don't know the stats, but the last couple of times we've versed victory, we've come away with wins, which is really good. And there have been some nice scoring games for us as well. So I think if we can start off the season, keep that streak going, it'll be quite positive going into the rest of the season.
Hannah Brewer will miss the match. She's serving a red card suspension from last year's semi-final loss. But the Jets are confident their next generation will fill the void. Claire Wheeler is testament to that. After winning the Cheryl Salisbury medal for the side's most committed player last campaign, the young Matilda will start in midfield alongside Emily Van Egmond, replacing American import Tori Huster.
Definitely a lot more responsibility and a lot more ownership, and I hope I do the job really well. Like, Tori was fantastic. She's all about that attacking football that Deansy wants. So I'm more safe kind of player, and Tori's was that person that loved to go forward all the time. So I think learning off her that it's okay to go forward, it's okay to be dangerous, and hopefully I can bring that more into my game this year.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Tom Fraser-Holmes' mission for 2018 was to earn back his green and gold uniform. He achieved that goal at the National Short Course Championships in Melbourne over the weekend, winning the 400-metre individual medley.
Definitely emotional. A lot of blood, sweat and tears that goes into every single preparation.
Fraser-Holmes' world came crashing down in June last year when he was slapped with a third strike for missing a random drug test. He was banned from swimming competitively for 12 months, missing the Commonwealth Games. He couldn't train with teammates or access coaching advice.
It's probably been the best thing happened to me, to be honest. It's given me the opportunity to go out there and progress my post-swimming career.
He worked for a real estate agency and honed his surfing skills, all the while focused on getting his swimming career back on track.
It's something that I'll look back on in 5-10 years' time and just be really proud of myself, the way that I've come back and handle myself.
In December, he'll take his never-give-up attitude all the way to China for the World Short Course Championships. Dominic Loudon, NBN News.